Says who, Tyler? I think we're here, guys. I hope we're here. Let me go to the questions, guys. Let me. No Sabres talk, please, says RDP. That's okay, RDP. We won't talk about the Sabres, although the Canadiens are playing the Sabres back-to-back over the weekend, so we might have to get there. What else do we got? That goal in OT, welcome to the NHL. It was a spectacular goal, guys. Montreal Canadiens 4. Welcome to Habs After Dark, guys. I apologize for all of that lead up. It was painful. I finally figured it out. I'm dealing with an old, shitty computer. I went out and got a crappy old iMac to use only for this purpose. I don't use it for anything else. I knew it was old. I knew it was slow. But I thought that I would be able to use it just for doing these shows. And so far it's been pretty good. But for whatever reason today, the camera on it didn't really work. I do have another camera that I can use as a plug-in. And I was going to try and use that, but it didn't seem to want to cooperate either. But anyways, I'm here. Again, Canadiens 4, San Jose Sharks 3 in overtime. I guess I can turn the TV down now that you guys are here. Spectacular goal by Cole Caulfield, guys. Like, that's the Cole Caulfield that we've been waiting for. He's had a spectacular year so far this year. I believe that was his 28th of the year, 28th, 29th. Somebody will correct me if I'm wrong. I believe it's his 28th of the year. I think that's right, his 28th. So he now has 53 points in 58 games. So he is almost on a point-per-game pace. So he's essentially on the same pace that Nick Suzuki was on last year. But that goal was special. He just decided that he was going to take care of business and take care of it himself. And that's precisely what he did. I don't want to miss any of the comments from before. Entertap says, don't worry, we're here. I think Entertap is not here anymore. Luciano was here. Did the hurricane end in Buffalo? Yes. Hit the likes while we wait. We got 6 likes, guys. I appreciate that. Keep them coming. And Billy D says, there you are. Who was the last Hab to hit 40 goals? Good question. I know that Max Pacioretty came close, but I don't think he got there. I think the last is probably, would it be Kovalev? I think it would have to be Kovalev would be the last to hit 40 goals for Montreal. So 3 in a row for Montreal. Yes, Claude. So again, Montreal Canadiens, a big win. Again, not their best game. I don't think they played as well tonight as they did against Carolina or Ottawa. But again, you have to win games like this sometimes. We talk about it all the time. You have to play the game that is put in front of you. And sometimes you play well and sometimes you don't play well. And, we've had a number of games recently where the Canadiens have lost games where they've played better and gotten a result that they didn't deserve or didn't get a result that they did deserve. And tonight, I think they got a result that, maybe is a little better than what they deserved. And that's fine. Good teams win games like that sometimes. We have a new addition to the show tonight, guys. If you don't notice it, it's the ticker down here. So what I'm going to do with the ticker is I'm obviously going to post the score of the game. So tonight you see the score as 4-3 for the Canadiens over the Sharks, which of course is not reading right because through all that shit I just did earlier, it didn't register. So I'm going to just edit that quickly, guys, for you. If that's okay. There. I also had put in the goal scorers, but I'm not going to go back and redo all of that right now. But what we also have on the board is the question of the night. And so the question of the night tonight, guys, is what should the return be for an Evans Armia package? So they're talking about possibly packaging Armia and Evans together. in order to make a trade and increase the value and the return, right? Individually, Evans might not be worth a ton. Individually, Armia might not be worth a ton. But the two of them together might be a little more valuable to some teams. So what do you think would be the return? What do you think they would get or be able to get in return for a package of Armia and Evans if that is the way they decide to go? 28 tied personal best. Yes, that's correct. He still has about 20 games left. Am I going to upload more videos or just live streams? I don't know, Anonymous. Right now I'm kind of doing the live streams. We're doing the Habs After Dark and we're doing the weekly show, Habs Therapy Day. I'm not sure whether I'm going to do, what I might start doing is clipping, sections of live shows and putting them up as individual videos. But I'm not really sure. I'm not really sure whether we're going to do that. Hey, what's up there? Oh my God, I'm drawing a blank on your first name. It's been so long. Oh my God, why am I drawing a blank on your first name? I remember your last name because it's the same as yes, Tim. I remember your last name because it's the same as the James Bond actor, Lazenby, or I think you pronounce it Lazenby. But I couldn't remember your first name. I apologize for that, Tim. I'm not really doing TikTok anymore, guys. I'm doing YouTube. So, Tim, if you want to join me on YouTube, I don't know if you're a YouTube guy. The YouTube channel is called Recliner Sports 4, and I do a show after every Canadiens game called Habs After Dark, and I just leave the TikTok on the side just so people can see that we're live and to be able to invite them over to the show. So if you want to come over and join us over here, Tim, it would be great. And I would also love to have you on the show as a guest someday because I think we could have some really cool conversations about hockey history and Habs history. But again, if you're not a YouTube guy, I get it. But if you are, come on over. We invite all of you guys to come on over and join us if you want to be part of the conversation. Do I see Kotkaniemi got in a fight tonight? Miss him on the Habs? Okay, well, I think you might be one of the only ones who misses him on the Habs. I don't really miss Kotkaniemi. How did he do in the fight? I'd be interested to see what a fight with Jesperi Kotkaniemi would look like. I would want a forward prospect, I think, for Evans Armia. Yeah, I think that's probably right, Billy D. I think individually, I don't think Evans or Armia are going to get you. You might get a second round draft pick or a B level prospect in return for one of them. More likely, you're probably looking at a second or third round draft pick. But again, if you put them together, if you pair them together, I think you're right. I think you could, maybe get a first round draft pick or even a decent prospect for those two guys. Especially if you can find a team that's a relatively decent Stanley Cup contender that maybe struggles on the penalty kill a little bit, right? You're giving them, essentially an automatic an automatic penalty kill with those two guys, right? Those are two guys who you can throw out on the ice anytime, and they'll kill a penalty for you. I'm just getting back on TikTok after 8 months. I'll add you on YouTube. It's the same. Yeah, I find it better over here on YouTube, Tim. I find there's a lot less trolling and a lot less BS to deal with. So that's kind of why I made the move over here. But it'd be awesome if you'd come over. There he is. There he is, Tim. All good, man. I appreciate it. And like I said, I know you're a Habs fan. So if you want to join the show, we go live after every Canadiens game. Usually I'm on the air about 10 minutes after the game, but tonight we had some technical difficulties, so it took me a little bit longer. I would want to why was he hated? Kotkaniemi, I don't know if he was hated. He just didn't really live up to expectations. I think he was I know he was a first round draft pick, and he was picked relatively high. I think he was picked despite certain players that most fans would have preferred, and he didn't perform. So, all of those things together led to him being not a very popular figure in the Montreal hockey world. Yes, Vincent Danfous lasts to 40 goals. I think that's, probably right. I think I'm sure you've looked it up, so I will say that you're definitely right, Jocelyn. I think you're new here, Jocelyn. Also, si vous voulez parler en français, c'est c'est une émission bilingue ici, alors si vous avez des questions en français, vous pouvez me demander les questions en français, on va répondre en français. Alors, je vous invite de venir ici, participer si vous êtes français, si vous êtes francophone et vous voulez parler au sujet des Canadiens en français. He was hated because they didn't take Brady Tkachuk. Yes, pretty much, Tim. Back live, yes, I am Entertap. Tough game, but good character builder when you don't have your best game learning to win. Yes, we talked about that a minute ago, Entertap, before you joined in. You're gonna, if you're gonna, be a successful team in the NHL, sometimes you're gonna have to win games that you, perhaps don't deserve to win. Right? They've lost a number of games in recent times. There were a couple of games right before the Four Nations break where they probably deserved a better result than what they got. So it's nice to see for a change that they're turning that around. So that sounds great, Tim. That sounds great. I'd love to talk to you. I think you'll be interested. That I'm writing a book. I think I've started to write a book or do the research to prepare to write a book about my uncle, Chuck Maxwell. And so, as a hockey historian, and somebody who's also written a book, I think it would be cool to have a chat. So that would be cool. KK was controversial pick at the time. Yes, that's I think the combination of all those things, that he was a guy who was picked when a lot of fans perceived that there were better players left on the board. The fact that he was a little bit controversial, that he was a little bit off the board, he wasn't rated as high as where the Canadiens picked him, and then the fact that he didn't succeed and didn't do very well in Montreal. All of that stuff combined, I think, was probably the main reason why Kotkaniemi, again, isn't a very popular figure. Sounds good, Tim. We'll chat soon. Our scouts have sucked for a while now. Not surprised that Kotkaniemi was a bust. I think the scouting staff is a lot better right now under the new management than it was under the previous regime, for sure. I think that improving the scouting was a big part of the success of this team. And again, when you're rebuilding and you're focusing on building through the draft and through your own organization, you better have good scouting, right? If you're not, if you're out there losing and getting high draft picks and you're drafting guys who don't make it, then you're obviously setting your rebuild back significantly. Whereas if you ensure that you have the best of the best in your scouting staff, and then you have the best of the best who can then coach and develop those players, then you're giving yourselves all the tools, and you're giving your rebuild all the tools to succeed. So I think the fact that the Canadiens have improved their scouting staff and have done a lot better, it seems, in that regard over the last few years, certainly is a positive as the team rebuilds. So we're going to go, guys, quickly, and we'll do the scoreboard here now. Again, I think the scoreboard will kind of bear out what Entertap and I were just talking about. Of course, the score was in favor of the Montreal Canadiens. The 4-3 overtime victory. The first goal, of course, coming from the San Jose Sharks early in the game. The Canadiens did not look great early on. They just didn't look great early on, right? The first 5 minutes was a bit of a struggle. Fabian Zetterlund gets the Sharks on the board from Will Smith and Wenberg. But the Canadiens do come back, right? They come back about 3 minutes later. Nick Suzuki on a nice play with Cole Caulfield, 2-on-1. Cole Caulfield sucks the defender over and makes the pass across the crease or across the slot to Suzuki, and Suzuki is just too quick. He gets the shot off, one-timer, and Georgiev, the goalie for San Jose, is not able to get across in time. They then kind of go to sleep again for another 4 or 5 minutes, and Nico Sturm scores for the Sharks from Kostin and Graf before Nick Suzuki ties it up at 2 with his second goal of the game with about a minute left in the first period, assisted from Hudson and Struble. Struble, I thought, again, had a pretty solid game tonight. I think he's playing really good hockey right now. and I was impressed with his game. The only goal in the second period came from Will Smith. He gives the Sharks the lead again. He goes in all alone. Well, he's not all alone, but he's essentially on a 2-on-1. The defender takes away the pass, and Will Smith just wires one past Sam Montembeault, an elite shot from a young elite player. And I'm not going to say Montembeault didn't have a chance on the play, but certainly Will Smith picked a spot that was hard to save. Third period, only goal, Alex Newhook early in the third period from Laine and Beck. Beck's first point in the NHL. By the way, the assist on the second Nick Suzuki goal from Lane Hudson was his 40th of the season. 40 assists as a rookie defenseman, pretty impressive numbers. For the second game in a row, Lane Hudson has won the battle with Macklin Celebrini. For what that's worth, I don't know whether that will have any impact on the voting or not for the Rookie of the Year, but again, back-to-back games, I think we would argue, not to say that Macklin Celebrini didn't have a good game, but the Canadiens have won both of those both of the games that the two of these guys have played against one another, and Hudson has, I think, been the better player in both of those games. So, some people might disagree with that, but I think that's my take anyway. So the third period, you get the goal from Alex Newhook. A bit of a weird one. Beck takes a big hit behind the goal line. He maintains his balance. He gets the puck. He gets it out in the crease towards Laine, and Laine kind of takes a shot / pass. I don't know what it was. I don't know whether he was intentionally getting the puck across to Newhook, but the puck goes to Newhook in the blue paint, and Newhook just has to tap it in, and the score is tied. The teams kind of battle back and forth in the third period. The Canadiens get a couple power plays that don't look great. They're not able to convert on those. So the game is going to overtime, and the overtime is pretty back and forth, right? The Sharks do get a couple of decent scoring chances. It wasn't a one-way street by any means in the overtime. But then it looked like Cole Caulfield decided that he had enough and wanted to go home. So he goes in. He beats a defender. I can't recall off the top of my head who the defenseman was. Beats a defender with puts the puck between his legs, goes around the defender, goes in on Georgiev, and then he dekes out Georgiev and he puts it roof daddy, top shelf, where mama keeps the peanut butter. Top shelf, right, where you keep the peanut butter. Yeah, a spectacular goal. I think it will be a candidate for one of the best goals of the year. It's certainly, I'm not going to say it's the best goal I've seen this year, but I can't recall one that was any better. Why has the scroll gone back to X's and X's? Why is it doing that? Oh, I know why it's doing that. I do know why it's doing that. Never mind. Anyways, yeah, so Cole Caulfield scores the overtime winner. The Canadiens win 4-3. If we look at the advanced stats again, it doesn't seem to favor the Canadiens. It's certainly not as one-sided as it appeared last night in the game, or not last night, on Tuesday night against the Hurricanes. The Canadiens do take the lead in shots on goal at 33-26. However, both of the possession stats, the Corsi and the Fenwick, favor the Sharks. The high danger scoring chances are very much in favor of the Sharks. Again, I'm not a huge fan of the high danger scoring chance stat. Like, for example, the Nick Suzuki goal was not considered a high danger scoring opportunity, right? And I can't imagine a one timer with change of direction, in the high slot or even in the regular slot, not to be a high danger scoring chance, but for whatever reason it didn't register as that. So it is what it is. The expected goals, of course, favored San Jose as well, but where it counted on the scoreboard, the Canadiens took the win 4-3 in overtime. So again, a spectacular goal from Caulfield and a really, really fun game to watch. Do you think the Habs should send down... Do you think the Habs should send down to play meaningful games and playoff games with the Rocket and give Primo a shot with his confidence back? I think you're asking me if they should send Dobesh down. No, I don't. I'm kind of surprised the lack of use that Dobesh is getting. I would have thought Dobesh would have played tonight. I thought this would have been a perfect game for Dobesh to play, and I'm surprised that he didn't. But I don't know. I don't know what they're doing. You know, again, one of the concerns about bringing Dobesh up to the NHL for me was that he wouldn't get as much ice time and that it might stunt his growth a little bit. But the Canadiens don't seem to be concerned about that. So I'm not sure. I'm not sure about all of that. I'm not sure why he's not getting the net a little bit more often. But we'll see how things go. Enter tap. Suzuki, Caulfield, Hudson, and Slavkovsky. Struble, honorable mention. It's been so long since I did the A-team. I know that's not right, but I'm trying to remember who I picked. You have 3 of 4 correct. Yeah, you got 3 of 4 correct. What's up, Larry? Nice to see you, of course, as always. Yeah, you can't say much else after that goal by Caulfield, Larry. I agree with you. It was a pretty special goal. To be fair, Montreal has not fared well against San Jose. Sometimes you just don't match up favorably against some teams. They lost 5 at Bell Center games. Yes. Yeah. Again, I think, yeah. I mean, those numbers probably date back to a time when the Sharks were a little bit better than they are right now. But again, right? They won tonight. They won. They won when it mattered, and sometimes you have to win games where you're not the best team on the ice, and that's a sign of a good team. Caulfield, Suzuki, Caulfield, and Caulfield. Okay, okay. I better have Caulfield on there then, shouldn't I? Time to lurk and learn. I'm not the sharpest knife in the drawer with the young talent. That's you do great, Larry. Don't sell yourself short, man. I appreciate you being here. Thank you very much. But I'm happy to have you lurk in the background. If you guys are not yet following, guys, please subscribe down below, the button down below. I don't know if you guys have noticed as well, we've got the new ticker going, and there's a question on there on the ticker. We're going to start posting a question of the night, or I don't know what we're going to call it. I got to come up with some clever name for it. But the question tonight is, let's see as it comes up here. What should the return for an Evans Armia package be, right? So the Canadiens have indicated that, those guys are obviously, available for trade. I think it's pretty clear that individually, neither one of those guys is going to get a major return. But it appears that if you were able to package the two of them together, that you might get a better return for them. So my question to you guys is, what do you think the Canadiens could get, should get, would get? What would you be happy with if they traded those two guys? What kind of a return would you be happy to see come back in return for those two players? So I think individually they probably don't bring back a lot, but as a pair, especially if you have a team that needs some help on the penalty kill, as a pair, I think they could be an interesting addition for a number of teams in the NHL. What are you doing this? What are you thinking, RDP? What are you thinking about? Are you thinking about Saturday night? You thinking about Saturday night's game? Let's get to the A-team then, guys. Let's see if we have any music to go with the A-team tonight. I don't know if the sound is working. It appears not. So I don't know what's going on with that. I'll have to figure that out. And of course, we're going to get the blank score on the ticker. That's fine. It's all good. Vantage. Do you think if the Habs are in a playoff spot, do you still trade Evans? Yes, if he's asking for too much money, I think you trade him either way. Vantage. I don't think that the Canadiens being, the Canadiens placement in the standings will have nothing to do with whether or not they trade Evans. It'll all have to do with whether or not they're comfortable with the amount of money he's asking for, and if they're not, he'll likely be traded. And if they are, then they'll re-sign him. So, anyways, guys, let's get to the A team. The A team: Yoel Armia, Nick Suzuki, Lane Hudson, and Cole Caulfield. I have no issue with the other guys you mentioned. I just thought that Armia was really dangerous out there tonight. I thought he played well. I thought he had a good game. He did his job. I thought he was really, really good. And I certainly could have put Suzuki or Slavkovsky out there. Again, I don't take any particular issue with the other players that you guys have named. Again, Caulfield for me, put the icing on the cake and made it an easy decision with the overtime goal. But he had a pretty good game from beginning to end. Unfortunately, Josh Anderson looks like he's hobbled again. That guy is a warrior, right? He's playing through a ton of things right now, and it's tough to watch, but it's impressive nonetheless. But Nick Suzuki, again, just playing great hockey since coming back from the break, playing that leadership role, being an example for the rest of the players, sucking it up, and doing what it takes to carry the team. Right? What did Caulfield say? When he was out there interviewed after the game, he said, he's driving the bus. And we're just, we're along for the ride. And I don't think that's a bit of an exaggeration, but, he might not be the most talkative guy in the world, but he certainly leads by example. And I think the team respects him and they look to him for that leadership. Hudson, I thought, had a good game again tonight with the focus being on him. And Celebrini, again, I thought he performed, he demonstrated, I think he was just as good. I think he was better than Macklin Celebrini tonight, and I think he was better than Celebrini the last time these two teams played. So he's won the battle 2 times in a row. The Canadiens have won both of those games, and the Canadiens have won both of those games, and I think that Hudson was the better player in both of those games. So that's it for the A team, guys. Again, I think Slavkovsky, as Entertap points out, another 6 hits tonight. He's taken that new attitude to heart, and it's nice to see. It's great to see, quite frankly, and he, it just gets him more involved in the game, right? I think the physical contact is one thing, but to see him, I think getting physically involved in the game gets him involved in other aspects as well. Whether it's the offense, he just seems more involved in. You often forget when you watch him how skilled and talented he is. Like, he can do a lot of the same things that Suzuki and Caulfield can do, as far as throwing the puck around and make his vision, and he for a big guy, you don't expect that from him, and every once in a while he makes a pass and you're like, holy smokes, that guy's got skill. So I think he could have been there as well. I thought Struble had a great game as well. Also 6 hits tonight, and he's had a pretty good week also. So. The Canadiens seem to be firing on all cylinders right now. It's good to see. They've got a couple games against Buffalo, much to RDP's chagrin. But it was another fun game to watch, and I think again, it's always more fun when you're trying to pick an A team when you have a ton of guys to choose from than it is when you're, you've only got a couple guys who really. Sometimes there are games where it's hard to find 4 guys to put on the A team, quite frankly. Through October and November, that was tough. So, return on Armia Evans warrants a 1st and 4th, but Hughes is not high on more picks, so I'll say an A prospect that can join the team now or next season at the latest. I think I agree with that, Intertap. I know I agree with that. I don't think that Hughes will turn down a 1st-round draft pick if he can get it. I agree with you that he said that he doesn't want picks, but I think that hey, Jeff Perlman, if you are still here, I hope you didn't leave. I think you're awesome. Your stuff is great, but I probably missed you. That's twice you've passed through and I missed you. But anyways, if you're here, I love your stuff. Keep it up. Sorry, guys. I don't know if you guys follow Jeff Perlman, but he's a really good follow on TikTok. Anywhere you can follow him, he's really, really good. He's a writer. He's an author. Writes a lot of sports books. Anyways, yeah, I agree with you, Entertap. First and a fourth. Again, I don't think that Hughes will turn down a first-round draft pick. Again, a first-round draft pick to me looks like, if you've got 3 first-round draft picks this year, then you can package those, right? And a first-round draft pick is gold. Like we know how valuable a first-round draft pick is because we've been talking about trying to get a first-round draft pick for our guys for a long time. So I agree with you that they're not necessarily in the market for a bunch more draft picks, but I don't think they'll turn down a first-round pick. But again, if they can get a prospect who's sort of in the 21 to 24-year-old range, the team I was looking at was Minnesota. I don't think I would want to trade those 2 guys to anybody in the East. And Minnesota is a team that is appears to be on the edge, on the verge of being a contender. And one of their big weaknesses is their penalty kill, right? They don't have a great penalty kill. So, is that a candidate? Like I said earlier, Armia and Evans give you an instant an instant penalty kill. Like you could put those guys out and they're, almost as good as anyone in the NHL at killing penalties. So I think your penalty kill improves vastly if you have those 2 guys on your team. If you add those guys to your fourth line, and so again, Minnesota would be a candidate. I don't know I do know what they have in their system. I know that there's been talk about them trying to trade Marco Rossi. I don't know that Rossi is probably more than what they would be willing to give up. Plus, I don't know that he's exactly what the Canadiens would want. Another small forward might not be in the cards for the Canadiens. Do you package Armia, Evans, and a first-round draft pick and try and go big? Brock Faber? I don't know. Does that do it? Like Brock? Do you can? I don't know. I know that there has been talk about Brock Faber, getting traded out of Minnesota. I don't know how serious those are, and I don't know that Armia, Evans, and a first-round draft pick gets that deal done. But again, I think that penalty kill is definitely a need for the Minnesota Wild. I would have put Struble. Yeah, I said that. I agree. I don't have a problem. Struble had a good game too. I listened to Entertap and William from Toronto to tell me they are sharp, but haven't heard from William this year. Vantage, if Doc comes back, do you send Beck to Laval? Me personally, I think Beck is better. No, I send Beck to Laval. Beck is only in Montreal because they have no choice. The better option for Beck is for him to be in Laval, to be playing with that team. That team has been together all year. They're doing great things. They're gonna be one of the best teams in the league when the season ends, and they're gonna go on a playoff run. And I think that the Montreal Canadiens recognize how valuable that kind of experience is for a first-year professional like Owen Beck. He plays a significant role on that team. He gets a lot of ice time. He plays a leadership role. He's an important part of that team, and I think, the experience of being an important part on a winning team at a level like the American Hockey League is an experience that will benefit a guy like Owen Beck significantly. And so, and Beck is not, he's not a top 6 forward. The role for him on this team down the road is not for him to be a top 6 forward. So I don't think it's in his best interest to stay in Montreal in that second line role. And again, when Doc comes back, he's going to play. So I don't think he's saying to send Doc down to the AHL, Anonymous. I just think he's wondering whether you think he should send Doc back down to the or Beck down to the AHL. Would I trade Doc? Probably not. At this point, I don't know that the trade market for Doc would be very good. I think certainly the value of Doc, or the value of waiting to see if Doc can, regain the form that we know he's capable of, is probably greater than what you could get for him in a trade. So right now, I don't think I would trade Doc. One, because they don't have anybody to replace him, really. Two, his trade value is probably not that great. And three, I think he has great potential, and I think it's in the Montreal Canadiens' interest to give him every opportunity to live up to that potential. And like I said on the show the other day, this isn't a scenario where the Canadiens are desperately, they're not, it's not like Kirby Dach, who admittedly is struggling. I'm not going to sit here and pretend. There's Jeff Perlman. Are you still here, Jeff? I hope you're still here, Jeff. If you are, I think you're great. Anyways, it's not like it's a situation where the Canadiens are a contender and that, Kirby Dach's, inconsistent play is sort of impacting their ability to make the playoffs or win the cup or any of that other stuff. They're rebuilding. And so they can afford to give Dach some time to improve, right? Don't forget, this team went 13-3 after the Christmas break with Kirby Dach as their second line center, right? So let's again, I know that it's really it's really in fashion right now to shit on Kirby Dach and to use him as your whipping boy and whatever, and that everybody loves to hate Kirby Dach, but this team has been successful with Kirby Dach in the lineup. Again, like I said, if they were a team that was on the verge of winning a Stanley Cup, if they were the Edmonton Oilers and their second line center was struggling and it was bringing the team down and it was negatively impacting their ability to go to the next level, then yeah, maybe you think about trading him. But that's not the situation that the Montreal Canadiens are currently in. Yeah, I don't think anybody was suggesting that Dach be sent down. I think the question was, when Dach comes back, would you send Beck down or would you keep him? I think that was the question that Vantage was asking. Well, they've been talking about trading Faber, Anonymous. It's not something that I've made up. I don't know whether they would trade Faber in the end, but I know that his name has been mentioned in trade rumors. Whether they're real or not, I don't know. So again, it's not something that I've pulled out of thin air. It's been something that's been mentioned. Could they get a Jiricek out of Minnesota for that pair? That might be intriguing. Yeah. Is Jiricek right-handed? Is he a right-handed defenseman? I'm not sure. Beck will be a great addition in the next 2 years. I agree, Larry. But I don't think that Beck's role on this team will be in a top six forward role. I think it'll be more likely as a fourth liner, possibly on a third line. But I think when this team is successful, when this team is ready to contend, I think you're looking at guys like Newhook, Hage, Roy, Kapanen on the third line, and then you're looking at guys like Beck, Jack-Eye, Tuck, Thorpe, maybe, depending on how he pans out. Guys like that, I think you're looking at them. Beck is NHL ready now. Will be with the team next year and maybe rest of this year. I think there's a difference between being NHL ready and being the NHL is the best place for you to be right now. I think Beck is NHL ready. I think he's certainly capable of playing in the NHL. I just think that it's better for his progress. It's better for his development. It's better for his future for him to spend the entire year in Laval. Beck has top six potential. He was playing good. I don't know why you have so low again, I don't view players in the bottom six to be less potential, Anonymous. Players who are bottom six players are not less good or not as good as players in the top six. It's a different role. It's a different job. Being a bottom six player is a different job. The reason Owen Beck is a bottom six player for me is that his real strengths lie in his defensive and his two-way play, right? He has high upside offense for a bottom six player, absolutely, but his strengths lie in his energy, his speed, his defensive game, and his responsibility as a defensive player, which is what makes him ideal to be a bottom six player, right? If you're talking about a team where the best players are on the first line, then the second best players are on the second line, and the third best players are on the third line, and the fourth best players are on the fourth line. I don't think that's a very smart way of building a roster, and it's not a way of building a winning roster. So ideally, on a good roster, you've got guys on every line who are suited to play the roles that come with that line. And Beck's role, Beck's skills, Beck's talent set are most suited for him to be on the fourth line. It's the same reason why Jake Evans is a fourth liner, right? If you move Jake Evans up to the second line, he just becomes an ordinary player because his skills are lost being on the second line. But as a fourth liner, he becomes a really, really good player because his offense is more than you would expect from a fourth liner, and he brings a skill set that suits a fourth line player. So again, my indication that Owen Beck is the fourth liner of the future of this team is not an indication that I don't have confidence in him, and I don't think he's a good player. I think he's an amazing player, and I think he's perfectly suited to play the role of a fourth liner, i.e., a guy who is a very, very tough defensive guy to play against, but who can also put the puck in the net. A guy who can kill penalties, a guy who can do a lot of things on the ice. And also, produce at a higher level than a typical fourth liner would. Let's see what Doc can do next year. Yeah, let's see what Doc can do. Again, if he's out for a significant amount of time right now, I think that's going to be tough for him. But would I take Callum Ritchie from Colorado for the pairing trade suggested? I would. I like Callum Ritchie. I think Cal Ritchie's a good player. I don't think he's done as well this year as I think people thought he might. I just want to look at some of his. I think he. Yeah, right-handed center. I mean, it'd be better if he was a lefty, but no, I think he's a great prospect. What does he have? He's back in Oshawa right now. He's got 65 games and 65 points in 38 games. I would expect he's probably playing a lot with Beckett Seneca. He's second on that team in scoring right now. I would be happy to have. I would be happy to have Callum Ritchie in return for those two guys. I don't know that Colorado is as desperate for penalty killers as Minnesota might be. Dylan Cousins in a fight here for Buffalo tonight. Oh, that was Kotkaniemi. Doc seems to be injury prone. Is that a factor? I don't like the term injury prone. I don't think that he's injury prone. I think he's been injured a lot. To me, injury prone is an indication that I don't know. Like if you've had the same injury over and over again, then I think you're injury prone. But I don't know. He's been injured a lot. Let's say that, Larry. He's been injured a lot, and I think that's. I don't know. Again, like it's always hard. Like if you remember, not last year. Was it last year and the year before where the Canadiens struggled? They led the league in man games missed due to injury. 2 years in a row. Like. And the question was like, why are they getting injured so much? And is it pure fluke, or is there something at play here? Is there a problem with their trainers? Is there a problem with the way they're preparing? Is there a problem with their strength and conditioning? I don't know. So like, is Kirby Dach prone to injuries? Is it something about him that makes him more likely to be injured than somebody else, or is it just is it bad luck and happenstance? I don't know. I don't know. But again, yeah, I mean, I think it's a factor in the sense that the more you miss and the harder you find it to return from injuries, that's going to affect your value. And the Canadiens aren't going to be able to sit and wait for this guy forever. So we don't know what this injury, this current one, is all about. I don't think they've made any announcement. I think they're going to make an announcement tomorrow. But if he's out for a significant amount of time, I don't think that's going to be a very good sign. Juracek is a right-handed D. Okay. I think our 3 best players are on our first line. No. Well, best players at what, Anonymous? Best players at what, right? Our best offensive producers are on our first line. Absolutely. Right? And that's, typically your first 2 lines are offensive producing lines, right? So in a perfect world, a perfectly made roster, you've got your offensive producers on your top 2 lines, right? And in a perfect world, those guys also have, are responsible defensively. But again, there are other aspects to the game of hockey than scoring goals, right? So if you're asking me, are the Canadiens 3 best defensive players on their first line? No, they're not. Right? Jake Evans is probably their best defensive player and their best penalty killer. Yoel Armia is a very good defensive player and penalty killer. Emil Heineman is a great, two-way player, and so again, too many fans equate best with scoring points, and that's not all there is to hockey. There's a lot more to hockey than scoring than getting points. So again, the answer to your question is, are the 3 best players on your first line? The answer is no, they're not. The 3 best offensive players, the 3 best offensive producers are on that line. But that's, again, your first line is not your best players. And second, everybody has a different role to play. Right? It's not about the best and the worst. It's about roles. And on a well-built roster and on a contending team, you've got guys from the top to the bottom of the lineup who play their roles and understand their roles and play it well. And so if you live in a world where you've got a 4th line that can shut down the other team's best line, guess what? Now you open up, Caulfield, Suzuki, and Slafkovsky to better matchups, because you don't have to put them out against Austin Matthews. You don't have to put them out against Connor McDavid. You don't have to put them out against Nikita Kucherov, right? You can put your 4th line, who's a really good shutdown defensive line, an Owen Beck, a guy who brings that skill set. You can put him out there against those guys, and now all of a sudden, Caulfield, Suzuki, and Slafkovsky, especially if you're playing at home, you can put them out there on the ice against the other team's 3rd and 4th line. You can match them up. They don't have to, Suzuki and Caulfield and Slafkovsky don't have to go out there and play against the other team's best offensive lines anymore. Did I agree with benching of Jack-Eye in the 3rd and the reasoning Marty St. Louis gave at the presser? I only saw it briefly. It was on in the background while I was trying to figure out what was going on with my computer. Intertap. Generally, no, I don't agree with him being benched. I don't know that he did anything to be benched, but I think that St. Louis said that, it just wasn't the right timing for him to get in the game. They had the back-to-back power plays and whatever. So I don't know. I don't know the real reason. I mean, it seems weird to me that, back-to-back power plays is only 4 minutes, so I don't know what else was going on there. If he didn't bench him because of performance issues, then I'm not sure that I think he said something about not wanting to put him out there in a situation where, he was set up to fail, which I don't quite get, because I think Jack-Eye has more than proven that he can play in any scenario. So again, I'd want to look and think about it a little bit more and listen to exactly what Marty St. Louis said. But again, I don't agree, generally speaking, with Arber Xhekaj only playing 1 shift in the 3rd period. I think he's certainly proven himself and earned the right to be out there in just about any situation, honestly. Skating without heads up causes injuries, and I see Doc as a heads down player, always looking down at the puck. But in my opinion, I may be wrong. I never disagree with the coach. He is the coach and sees more than I do. Kirby Doc being a heads down player. I haven't noticed that. I haven't noticed that myself. Certainly, his injury that kept him out last year wasn't a case of him having his head down. I think that Kirby Dach is a guy who has always, grown up being the biggest guy on the ice. Typically, like he's a big boy, and I think he's used to being, bigger than everybody else. And at the NHL level, he's not anymore. And so, I think maybe I see him sometimes put himself into situations where he throws his body into situations where, it's not ideal. So I do see that from him, and I think that again that play where Tenorti took him out and hit him into the boards and into the bench last year, that put him out of that was a scenario where I think he was trying to power his way through a spot that he probably didn't need to try and power his way through, and it kind of bit him in the rear end. So again, I'm not sure I see him as a heads down guy as much as I see him as a guy who has been in the habit over the years of winning the physical battles, and as such, kind of throws himself into situations where he's not the biggest, strongest guy in the league anymore, right? Like the NHL has big, strong guys too, whereas in junior and before that, Doc could probably get away with throwing his body around and getting away with it, but maybe he doesn't in the NHL. People are so quick to judge coaches' decisions with benching guys, etc., even though we know barely any of the reasons. Yeah, and that's what I'm talking about. Like, I don't know. I mean, I heard what his reasoning was. Again, I wasn't listening to it intently. Again, it could even be a situation. Sometimes you get caught up. And you just, before you realize, oh shit, I haven't put that guy out in a while. Sometimes it happens that way, right? It's there's lots of different things that can happen. I didn't see anything from. I guess what I would say is personally, and again, I agree with both you and Anonymous. I agree both Anonymous and Larry that I'm not a huge fan of questioning the coach. I'm a huge fan of Marty St. Louis, and I think he's done a fantastic job. So I'm not really questioning him. What I'll say is that, as having watched the game, there was nothing that stood out to me as being, a reason for Jack-I to not get shifts in the third period. Like, I didn't see anything that showed that he was struggling or he was having a hard time or whatever. And of course, throughout this season, I think that he's definitely gotten to the point now where he's earned the confidence of the coach. And, we've certainly seen him play in the last minutes of close games before. And so again, I'm not questioning the coach when I say that. I'm just saying that I don't fully understand the explanation, I guess, is what I'm saying. My top line since Four Nation break has 13 points in 3 games. That's your fantasy team with coach and the gang. Just watch. Maybe I just see it because I watch for it. Yeah, no, I don't watch it. I watch for it, Larry. I mean, I watch the games pretty closely, but I do think you're onto something there too, right? There's a lot to be said for sort of forming an opinion and then having a bit of a confirmation bias where you think that something happens a lot on the ice and then you kind of see it all the time. Like, it's like Mike Matheson, right? There are a lot of people out there who think that Mike Matheson is, not a very good defender and that he makes a ton of mistakes. And so then every time he makes a mistake, it stands out to them, right? They really see it. All right, Billy D, thanks for coming, man. I appreciate it. I really appreciate it, as always. But yeah. Yeah, and I'm not disagreeing with you. I just don't see him as a guy who takes a lot of big hits. Like, do you see him take a lot of big hits? And I don't think that his injuries have not really been the result of big hits. It's not like he's a guy who's been concussed or has sort of those shoulder injuries that you see from big hits. Like, I think that hit against Tenorti last year wasn't a particularly big hit. It was more, that he was hit off balance a little bit, and that's what. And again, I'm not sure exactly what hit it was that has injured him this time around. So, I don't know. I don't know. Again, I'm not going to disagree with you. I don't see that myself. Montreal's top line. Yes, Montreal's top line, 13 points in 3 games. Yeah, and again, that's to me, you know, again, there's obviously factors that that you have to incorporate on a case by case basis. But to me, your top two lines are going to be offensive production lines. Obviously, you want them to have a certain standard of defensive game and two-way play. But those are your offensive producers. Your third line to me is again you expect a certain level of offensive production from a good third line, but you also want them to be good two-way players. You want them to be pretty able and pretty capable on both ends. To me, the third line is often an energy line, lots of speed, that kind of thing. And then your fourth line typically, to me, if you have a fourth line made up of shutdown type defenders, then I think you're doing really, really well. Obviously you've got to adapt to the players that you have, and you can't always do it that way. But to me, that's the days of I think there's a lot of fans who, I guess I don't want to call them casual fans, but there's a lot of fans out there who just believe that your top line is your three best scorers, your second line is your next three best scorers, your third line are your next best score, your third best scorers, and then your fourth line are just your least scorers, and they associate the best scorers with the best players, and they associate the second best players with the second best scorers, right? You're not the best, there's different roles to play on a hockey team, right? And so just because you score the most goals on your team or have the most points, doesn't necessarily mean you're the best player, right? Barkov doesn't have the most points on his team. Obviously he's a very good offensive player as well, but there's guys who play different roles. There's guys who often sacrifice their offense to be better at other aspects of the game, right? We're seeing it from guys on the Canadiens who've now accepted different roles on this team. Like Brendan Gallagher at one time was a top six forward, but he doesn't really have that in him anymore, and he's been able to adapt his game to play a bottom six role. And so he's had to become more defensively responsible, and obviously he had the toolbox to do that. For example, like Sean Farrell in Laval, right? He's playing really, really well right now, but does anybody really think that there's a place for him on the Montreal Canadiens down the road? Because Sean Farrell can't play a bottom six role. You're not going to have a fourth line with Sean Farrell and Philippe Majar on it, right? Those guys, if they make the Canadiens, will have to be on the first or second line. You're not going to have Sean Farrell and Philippe Majar on your fourth line. Maybe you are, but that's not, to me, a recipe for success. It's all good, Ghislain. I appreciate it. Thank you for your thoughts. I'm happy that you're here, and welcome as always. It was big in my eyes looking at the players' moves over the years. It takes people by surprise at the wrong time. Yes. Takes people by surprise at the wrong time. You're talking about players with their head down. Is that what you're talking about, Larry? In my opinion, the second line has majorly improved going from Doc to Beck. Is that the sign that Doc is... Well, again, how has it improved majorly? Again, I think this is confirmation bias. You don't like Kirby Doc, and you're looking, how have they been significantly better? Kirby Doc was the center on the second line when the Canadiens went 13-3 or whatever their record was after the Christmas break. So when the Canadiens played their best hockey of the year, Kirby Doc was the second line center. Has Beck done fine? Yeah. I'm not disagreeing with you. Beck has been fine. Beck has been great. But again, I think you're employing a little bit of revisionist history when you're suggesting that the second line has improved majorly with Doc going out and Beck coming in. It's just not factual. It's not true. I'm old enough to have saw the Habs use a second line center as the first because they have nothing better. Yeah, well, sometimes that's kind of one of the the great things about a rebuild, and if a rebuild is done well, is that you do start from scratch, and so you can build your roster in a certain way because you are starting from scratch, right? You're not having to put a roster together with a group of guys that are forced to deal with or forced to work with, right? The Canadiens are able to build their team from the bottom up. So right now, when we talk about trades and we talk about the trade deadline, we talk about, looking for a left-handed centerman or a right-handed defenseman, or, because those are holes that need to be filled because the Canadiens have been able to build from the bottom up. And so, the roster is not, it's not like, okay, here's 20 guys, make a team out of them. With a rebuild, it's like, okay, well, we can draft guys with our roster in mind. We can draft guys with a plan in place on how we want the roster to look in 5 years from now. And then sort of, as you get further along in the rebuild, maybe you start making moves and trades to fill in, some of the holes that you weren't able to fill, through the draft and your own player development. Do I think the Canadiens are getting the best out of their third line? I do, Tony B. I think they have all year. I mean, unfortunately, I think that at the moment, Josh Anderson is being held together with, paper clips and duct tape, and I think he's struggling physically, but he's going out every night and putting his best foot forward. I think Dvorak is playing, not great hockey, but certainly, as good a hockey as he's played since he's been with the Montreal Canadiens. And Brendan Gallagher has been great. So yeah, I think that third line's been fine. Four lines have purpose and different purposes, as you all know, but most people don't know that. I like Doc. Yeah, I mean, again, I think it's a typical misconception, Larry, that there's a hierarchy from the first to the fourth line, and to a degree there is. Don't get me wrong. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of emphasis placed on scoring, and there's a lot of emphasis placed on players who get a lot of points, and those are the ones who make a lot of money. And obviously, guys who score 50 goals and get 100 points are they're valuable. They're valuable players, and they make the most money and all of that. But again, it's like, it's not just about scoring goals. And each player on your team has a purpose and has a role to play. Just like you wouldn't put 3 5'10" speedy forwards on your first line together, even if they are your best offensive players, right? You might need somebody with a different profile on that first line to break things up a little bit. Maybe you need to put a guy who's got a little bit more size, or a guy who is more of a finisher to play with. It's a roster isn't just about ranking your best players and then throwing them into the lineup in order. That's not a recipe for success. Back in the day, Guy Carbonneau was a scorer in junior, but got a more defensive game in the NHL. One damn good at it, Frank. Yeah, Bob Gainey. Right, so Bob Gainey's a great example, Ghislain, right? So back in the 70s, late 70s, Viktor Tikhonov, who was the coach of the USSR, I think this was in the 80s, actually, maybe the early 80s, was asked who's the best hockey player in the world. And everybody was expecting him to say like Wayne Gretzky or whoever, were the greatest players at that time. And he said Bob Gainey. He said Bob Gainey is the perfect hockey player, right? And, Bob Gainey was a guy who was very capable of scoring goals. He had the ability. He did it, as you say, he did it in junior, as did Guy Carbonneau. But he accepted a very different role on a team where, the team was stacked with offensive talent, right? And so for him to take on that role, balanced out that team. They already had the Guy Lafleurs and the Steve Schatz and, all those other guys who could put the puck in the net. And, Bob Gainey took on a very different role. And, the Russian hockey team recognized that, or the Soviets at the time. So, yeah, again, getting back to the Frank Selke Trophy, the award no longer goes to the best defensive forward in the NHL, right? The award now goes to a really good point producer who also is okay defensively, who's pretty responsible defensively. Like now we're talking about guys like Austin Matthews is being considered for the Selke Award. Mitch Marner's being considered for the Selke Award. Like, these are not Selke Award winners. Selke Award winners are Guy Carbonneau and Bob Gainey and, these other guys who were defensive stalwarts who, would shut you down. 11 points in 5 games for that line since Beck has replaced Doc. Okay. Did they not play well when the team went 13-3? Again, if you don't like Doc, that's fine, Anonymous. It's fine. I get it. He's done a lot of things this year, and his game has been inconsistent, and there's a lot of reason not to love him. But again, I think your argument loses credibility with me when you refuse to acknowledge reality. Right? I get it. If you don't like Doc, that's fine. But don't tell me that the line has improved majorly. And by the way, they haven't played 5 games since they replaced Doc. So you're making things up now, right? Beck has only replaced Doc in the last 2 games. So I don't know where you're getting your numbers from and where you're making them up. Like, Doc played. Kirby Doc played Kirby Doc played against Ottawa on the 22nd, right? He played 19 shifts and played 13 minutes and 43 seconds. So it's only been the last 2 games that Kirby Doc hasn't played. So again, your argument kind of loses credibility with me when you make things up and you make up numbers and stats to try and support your argument. Again, you're just demonstrating to me that you're looking for something to bring down Kirby Doc. During the game, are coaches constantly trying to match lines against opponents, or do they go about their natural rotation? I think it depends, Tony. I think it depends on the team. I think it depends on the team you're playing against. I think to a certain degree, I think coaches are always trying to get the most favorable matchups as they possibly can. I think there's always some level of that going on. I think you see it, in the playoffs, it becomes, even ramped up even more. But again, it's, it depends on the team. It depends on the team you're playing against, and it depends on the team that you have. But I do think you go into a game with a strategy as to, what your most favorable matchups are and who you'd like to see out there at the right time. And then there's even matchups about, who do you want taking the face-off? Is the face-off on the right-hand side or the left-hand side? You see the Canadiens at the beginning of overtime, right? Christian Dvorak goes out and takes that first face-off. Christian Dvorak is not on the ice because they think he's the best guy to play 3-on-3, right? He's out there to win that face-off, and then then he typically does his best to try and get off the ice as quickly as he can. So Gainey that's why he was captain for years. Yeah, Gainey was a special guy, man. Gainey was an incredible hockey player. I'm old enough to remember number 23, and he wasn't a very good GM, but he was certainly a really good hockey player. Boom Boom Geoffrion was the second line right winger because the first one was Rocket Richard. You're a little bit, that's before my time, Ghislain. I don't go back as far as the Boom Boom Geoffrion days, but I certainly have read about them, and I know I know the great players of those days. I like him. I'm just saying that line is doing better with Beck, and they're not. That's what I'm trying to tell you, Anonymous. And you know, again, I'm not trying to be condescending, and I'm not trying to be, rough here with you. But like you keep saying the same thing over and over again. They're not majorly better with Beck. They're not. It's just not factual, right? And the fact that you had to go and bring in some made up numbers to try and prove your point demonstrates to me that it's not a fact, right? So what you had said was that they're majorly better with Beck, and they're not. Right? So again, as I've said, and I'll repeat myself one more time. Kirby Dach was the center of the second line when the Canadiens played their best hockey of the year. Right? And does that mean that he was great and whatever? No, I agree with you that he's been inconsistent. But Owen Beck is not going to be a top six forward in the NHL when the time comes. I mean, it would be he would have to take a major step forward in order for him to get into that role, and I don't see it. And I don't think the Canadiens see it. And the only reason he's in that role is because the Canadiens at the moment don't really have a choice. Yes, they could bring in a Jared Davidson, or they could bring in somebody else to play that role. And Beck's doing a fine role there. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that he's bad. I'm not saying that they're worse with Beck. He's looked very much at home and at ease, and they don't look out of place, and they're playing fine with him. But to me, if you're going to suggest that they're majorly better in the last two games with Owen Beck than they have been with Kirby Dach, I don't think you're right. I mean, I know you're not right. They haven't been. They haven't produced better, and they haven't. Again, it's two games. I mean, how could you possibly know that? Montreal loved the Rocket. He was the lifeblood of the common man. Yes, he was a very, very popular man in Montreal. They rioted for him, right? It was a very, very passionate time when it came to hockey back in those days. Is it possible that Dach is a better player, but Beck is a better center? Well, again, we keep using words like best and better and whatever, right? I think Dach has a higher upside as an offensive producer. I don't think that Dach is a better player than Beck. I just think that they're different players. They bring a totally different skill set to the situation, right? Beck doesn't have, to me, Beck doesn't have the offensive skill set to be a top six forward on a good team. He could be a top six forward in the NHL, but not on a Stanley Cup contender. Not to mention that I think his skill set suits him best to be a bottom six player, because he is so good at other aspects of the game, and he is so good, defensively and at, face-offs and whatever. So again, I don't know that it's a matter of better. It's different. They're different players. Yes, Le Gros Bill was a pretty special guy. There apparently, now tell me this isn't cool. There apparently is an interview out there that Jean Beliveau did in the late 60s on the CBC, and I've yet to be able to get my hands on it, so it might be... I'm pretty sure that it's true, because the people who have told me about it are not people who would tend to lie. But apparently there's an interview out there in 1969 or 68 or something like that where Jean Beliveau makes a comment about my Uncle Chook, Stan Maxwell, being either the best or one of the best hockey players he ever played against, which is kind of cool. My Uncle Chook never made it to the NHL. He was black and played most of his career before Willie O'Ree around the same time as Willie O'Ree broke the color barrier, and never had an opportunity to play in the NHL. But I thought that was pretty cool, and I would love to someday get my hands on that interview. And I maybe have a way into that, but it's hard to find. But it'd be really cool if I could find it. Jean Beliveau I don't know that there's very many people in the world of hockey that you would rather get a compliment from, in the history of hockey, that you'd rather get a compliment from than Jean Beliveau. What is the ideal role for Kirby Dach based upon what we've seen so far? Well, I don't know what you mean by what we've seen so far, Gislain. I mean, if we're talking about the guy who went into last season as probably the best forward on the team, right? He was the best player in training camp going into last season. I think his role is as a second line forward. Obviously he struggles in the faceoff circle, and maybe he's better suited as a winger on the second line. Um, I don't know that he's the kind of guy who has the skill set to play a bottom six role. I think he would. I think he has the body, and I think he has the physical attributes to do it. Um, but he would have to. He would have to. We see it from Josh Anderson, right? Josh Anderson has accepted and adopted that role of a bottom six player, and he's had to adapt his game significantly. And he struggled last year, and now this year he appears to sort of bought in a little bit, and he's been able to do it. So, for me, the ideal role for Kirby Dach is for him to, return to the form that he demonstrated, at the beginning of last season before he got hurt, and be a guy like, if you remember, people were talking last year at the beginning of the year that people were wondering whether Kirby Dach would eventually become the number one centerman, and Nick Suzuki would be the guy who would slide down to the second line, right? That was a conversation that was being had everywhere. I know there's a lot of guys out there that don't believe that or deny that, or aren't willing to admit that or acknowledge that, but that was the conversation that was going on at the beginning of last year, right? There's a lot of people out there that were questioning whether Nick Suzuki was a true number one center, and whether it might be a scenario where Kirby Dach would move into that role. Labatt Maximum Ice down the hatch. Geez, you're giving me flashbacks from high school, RDP. You're giving me flashbacks from getting Molson Dries and Labatt Maximum Ices from the Provisoire. Getting a couple of King cans of Molson Ice 9.0s, or a bottle of Maudit. Beliveau was the best center in hockey. Yeah, I mean, hard to say, but yeah, I don't. Again, I'm looking for it, Larry, and hopefully someday I'll find it. I'm writing a book, or trying to write a book, doing some research in preparation for writing a book about my uncle, and that certainly would be a great thing to have. My uncle actually played junior hockey for a year with Scotty Bowman, and I was able. Not this past summer, but the summer before that, I was able to speak with Scotty Bowman on the phone for about 45 minutes. So I have like a 45-minute interview with Scotty Bowman saved on my phone, which is pretty cool. Watching the game, I got the feeling that the Sharks are an up-and-coming team, a la Canadiens. Yeah, I think they are too, Tony. I think they're probably a year or two behind the Canadiens as far as their rebuild is concerned, but I think they've done a really good job of drafting. They've got some really, really nice players on that team. I mean, obviously Celebrini, but William Eklund is good. I really like Graf. I can't think of his first name right now. He was signed as a free agent last year, like a college free agent, right? Colin Graf, out of Quinnipiac. And I really like his game. Will Smith, obviously. I think they've got a lot of good young players. They've got some defensemen there as well. They've got Askarov playing down in the minors, which I'm not sure what that's all about. But yeah, I think they're in good shape. I think they're doing the rebuild properly. I don't think, in contrast with Chicago and Anaheim, I think they're doing a much better job of the rebuild. Well, Gislain, if you're 52, you don't remember Jean Béliveau. You didn't watch Jean Béliveau play. You didn't watch the Rocket play. But I get it. You watched them play, but you didn't watch them at the time. You're the same age as me. You're the same age as me. yeah, it's cool. I enjoy it. I've been actually spending a lot of time in our tap going through like old newspaper clippings from the uh, mid to late 50s and early 60s, looking at news reports and box scores and stuff from those days when he was playing. So he went from Nova Scotia to Quebec, and he played in Trois-Rivières, Trois-Rivières Flames, Trois-Rivières Flambeau. Then he played for the Quebec Citadels. Then he played for the Quebec, King. I don't know. He played. Anyways, I have it all written down. Anyways, it's really cool. A couple of cool stories like Scotty Bowman, playing with Scotty Bowman. I think he was probably on the ice with Scotty Bowman or on the team when Scotty Bowman got hurt. Right. I'm sure most of you know this, but Scotty Bowman suffered a serious head injury when he was 19 years old. I think playing junior hockey where he cracked his head open on the ice and was never able to play hockey again, which is why he got into coaching right away and, became, I think he became an NHL coach, in his early 30s. But I think Uncle Chuck would have been on the team when it might have been the year after Uncle Chuck was with him, but I'm not sure. So, but it is fun. Like one of my coolest stories is he was playing for the Ottawa Hull Canadiens, which was a senior team at the time, and they played an exhibition game against the Montreal Canadiens in the preseason. I think it was 1959, maybe 1960, and maybe earlier than that. I'm not sure. Anyways, the Montreal Canadiens had just signed or traded for Lou Fontinato. And, for those of you who remember Jean Beliveau and you remember Rocket Richard and all those guys, you'll also remember that Lou Fontinato was probably one of the toughest guys in the NHL. He was known as a fighter and he was a tough cat. And so this was Lou Fontinato's first game in a Montreal Canadiens uniform. He had, in the off season, he had been picked up by Montreal and he was in uniform, and they were playing an exhibition game against the senior league team. And Lou Fontinato decided that he wanted to fight my uncle. My uncle being 5'10", 170 pounds. And the newspaper articles talk about the fact that my uncle pretty much gave him a beating, taught him a lesson, I think is one of the expressions they use. So I've always thought that was a pretty cool story. But anyways, enough about my Uncle Chuck. Maxius Super in 1966 in Hemingford Hotel in Quebec. My grandfather and me, I'm 71. Maxius Super. What is Maxius Super, Larry? What does that mean? I was raised by a Vautour. Yvon Vautour is a relative, former Islander. Yes, I know the name. I don't know the player really well, RDP. I thought you were telling me that you were raised by vultures. That's what I thought you were trying to tell me, RDP. I was like, that's not very nice. Yes, Beliveau's last game was in 71. I was born in 73, Ghislain, so I just missed him as well. I missed him as well. And Guy Lafleur, I think he played his first game in the NHL in 72. So, yeah. You and I are right on about the same age, Ghislain. Anyways, guys, I think that's going to be about it for tonight. I know it was a slow start, and we missed about half an hour with me trying to figure out how to use a computer. It was a beer back in the day by Labatt's. I gotcha. Maximus Super. Okay. Before my time, Larry. Before my time. Yeah, so that's going to be it for tonight, guys. Listen, I appreciate it, and I appreciate you guys sticking around and sticking with me despite the technical problems at the beginning. If you haven't hit the thumbs up yet, please do. I think it was a fun show once we finally got it started. Larry, Ghislain, RDP, Entertap, Tony B, Anonymous, all the gang. Who else was in here earlier? Billy D was here, had to leave. Early day for Billy D tomorrow. RDP, I think I already said. So a lot of the regulars, same guys. Vantage was here. Thank you, Vantage. I know you're not here anymore, or not likely here anymore, but it was great to have you in, and great for your chat and your conversation. Yeah, Tim was here. Tim Lazenby, great guy, by the way. Tim Lazenby. I don't know if you or Lazenby. If you don't follow him, he's a guy who really knowledgeable about hockey and hockey history. He doesn't do any content, I don't think, on YouTube. He does do a lot of content on TikTok, and used to do a ton of like trivia stuff. You do hockey trivia on TikTok Live. Really nice guy, like one of the nicest guys on the internet. Asim was here. Yeah, I mean, if there's any way, I don't know if any of you guys use TikTok or if you use any of the other platforms, but Tim Lazenby, he goes by NHL PhD. Really nice guy, really smart guy, and a guy worth not just following but befriending. He's a really nice guy, and I highly recommend following him if you get the opportunity. But that's it, guys. Again, if you're not following us, if you're not subscribed, please do so. We're trying to grow our channel. We're trying to grow our community. We're trying to give everybody a place where they can come and have civil, intelligent conversations about hockey, where you don't have to worry about a lot of the trolling and a lot of the other BS that comes with the internet on a lot of the other platforms. So if that's something that you're interested in, we certainly invite you to join us and join the family. The more the merrier. We're trying to get to 500 subscribers. We're not quite there, but we would all love for you to join us. Si vous voulez nous joindre à Recliner Sports, à notre émission Habs After Dark, bleu, blanc, rouge, nuit. That's what I'm calling Habs After Dark in French, guys, is bleu, blanc, rouge, nuit. So yeah, if si vous voulez nous joindre, c'est une place pour parler à propos des Canadiens après les matchs, la conversation civile, la conversation intelligente, sans avoir les niaiseries typiques de l'Internet. Vous êtes tous bienvenus à nous joindre ici. On vous what's welcome? We welcome you. On vous invite à être partie de notre famille, de notre canal, et on veut avoir le plus de personnes possible. So, anyways, guys, we're running late here. It's been a great show. I appreciate everybody. 4-3 Habs. That's 3 in a row. Overtime winner. Highlight reel goal by Cole Caulfield. Maybe candidate for goal of the year. We'll check it out. We'll see how that goes. Most OT goals in Habs history: Pacioretty, Morenz, Joliet, Caulfield. Yes, remember Caulfield had like 6. Was it last year he had 6? But yeah, I think he had 6 just last year alone, and I think it was either a record or he tied the record. I'm not sure. But thank you, Intertap. Thank you, Gislain, on the French side. We got a guy was amazing. Yvon something will Paul Hood. On parle à qui? What are we talking about, Gislain? Not sure. Morenz and Joliet before my time. Well, Joliet is before. The only thing I remember about Aurel Joliet is when they brought him out one time to do like some sort of a 50th or 100th anniversary or something, and they brought him out and he insisted on putting his equipment on and going out and skating, and he just he was like 90 years old and he like flopped all over the ice, and I mean everybody they thought he was going to kill himself, but I think he insisted on doing it. You can watch the video. I don't know if you guys remember that, but I remember that. Okay. Well, if you want to talk about old time sports announcers from Montreal, I don't think it gets any better than Ted Teven. So on that note, guys, with Ted Teven in mind, you're gone!
Parked in front, Dr. Caulfield fires, scores!
You are about to enter Habs After Dark with Recliner